Hey guys, I'm really excited to show you my multi-genre research project that I did on Amy Winehouse today. So first off, I've got my Dear Reader letter, and I just start out by talking about what I wanted to accomplish with my research, and I really wanted to get to know the more personal side of Amy. I feel like we only hear about the really tragic and sad parts of her life, and I wanted to move past that and kind of show who she really was, what inspired her for her music, what led. I wanted people to see past the drugs. I wanted them to see why she deteriorated in such a sad and lonely way. And I wanted to kind of bring light to the things that inspired her and bring some joy back into her story. And I just talk about how I was really fascinated with her inspirations instrumentally and with her lyrics. And I also loved getting to see like her personally, the way she interacted with her friends and family before she met the specific people that led her life go to a more dark path. But so I'm gonna move on from my letter and I'm gonna show you my first artifact. And I decided to do a birth chart for Amy. And I figured I've been studying astrology for like 2 or 3 years now. And to me, this is the best way to get to know someone personally. It can really show you the reasoning behind their actions and also the way their personality tends to be. And Amy's birth chart was fascinating. It was so interesting and fun to look at. Her Neptune placement, especially. It wasn't more about which sign it was in, but really the house it was in and what planets it was aspected to. And then we've got her Mercury, Moon, Rising, and Sun placement. I didn't include every single planet because it would be, and every single aspect, or else it would be a crazy long artifact piece. It'd probably be, I was being generous in my description, it probably would be like 25 to 35 pages in reality if I went into every single like conjunct, square, whatever. But her having a Gemini rising makes the most sense to me, especially with such steady placements. Like her sun and moon are both earth signs along with her Mercury. But the Gemini really allowed her to kind of, it helped her personality kind of not be restricted in the way it could have been. So Geminis are really, they tend to be outgoing, they talk a lot, really talkative, they joke, and they have to be doing multiple things at once. So this explains how talented Amy was with her voice, how she was able to get the jazz notes and how to do the, I think it's called the doo-wop sounds. I can't recall and I apologize about that. But the control she had over her voice makes perfect sense in the Gemini rising placement. The moon in Capricorn really shows how well she was able to communicate her emotions in her singing because she wasn't able to do that to other people, really. She was too closed off for that. But her music, which explains why it was so personal. I'm gonna move on to Mercury. So Mercury is the planet of communication, and Virgo, the sign Virgo, is ruled by Mercury. So it's kind of like a double whammy we've got going on. And Virgos are Earth, and they're very stuck. Even more so, like people would say, Tauruses tend to be really stubborn, and I'm not saying they're not, but there's something about Virgos is because they're so driven and they're very focused that it sometimes causes them to narrow, especially in their own opinions, which I've said in the placement. The Neptune one is fascinating. Neptune rules over reality distortion, so anything that can cause that, like drugs, alcohol, and the way it aspected in her seventh house and with other placements made a lot of sense as to why her relationship with the main man in her life was so controlled by drugs and all these substances. And that's it for this one. I've got my notes page down here with all my sources. I kind of combined like all my it'd be really hard for me to cite all my astrology knowledge with this one, but I made like the documentary I watched really helped me, and then I used the Astro Codex, which is my go-to website. But I'm going to move on to Artifact 2 now, which is my Spotify playlist. So I found this one Fender interview where she got to interview with the guitar company and just talk about what inspired her musically. It's mainly with guitars, but she talked about her lyrics some, and it was a really good 11-minute long interview where she just talked about music, and you could just see this light and love in her eyes and how much passion she had for it. But here's my Spotify playlist. So I've got, she loved PJ Harvey, she loved Carole King. She always talked about warmth, like she wanted warm guitar notes, and I thought that was something I really didn't expect, even though I've listened to Amy's music since I was 14. Just never really caught that. She loved Shuki Otis and Jimi Hendrix, and she also was really inspired by the Velvet Underground, the 70s kind of vibe. And my description is right here. I kind of wrote it from like Amy's point of view. I did several of those kinds of pieces. And I just, I wanted to feel like it was coming from her, like you were getting to know her. That was my main goal. But yeah, give it a listen when you can. All right. So for my third one, I did a journal piece. I wrote it during the time before she wrote Back to Black, but it was right after she broke up with her boyfriend, Blake, and it was just a really, really dark time in her life. It was after she had gone and done tours and press. She wasn't working as much, and she just never left her apartment. She was drinking heavily. We don't even know what kind of drugs. She hadn't gotten into the really hard stuff yet, like heroin and that kind of stuff, but we don't really know the extent of how deeply she was into drugs at this point, but we know she was drinking very heavily. So I kind of wanted that distortion to be in this journal piece. I wanted people to be able to see where she was stuck in and how Back to Black came to be and what kind of dark and heavy headspace she was in and how her music really helps her. I thought that was really important. And I've got my notes page, the sources. My biggest influence for this journal piece, like my biggest piece of information was Back to Black, because she was so emotionally expressive within her songs. And my research really came from the documentary and just like what in her life was happening. It connected and interwove the two to find this artifact. And for my fourth one, I've got a Pinterest board. I designed this one as if she was about to go on tour for Back to Black, or was already on tour. And I have a lot of she made her Back to Black album with the Dap Kings. So I threw them in my Pinterest board, and I have PJ Harvey. And if you look at some of PJ Harvey's outfits, like especially this cheetah skirt one, this one right here, and especially with these little heels and the oddly placed belt, like Amy's style was very ill-fitted and odd in my opinion, but PJ Harvey fits her to a T. And I've got Jimi Hendrix in here, and I've got Sharon Jones, who was originally touring with the Dap Kings. The Dap Kings are they're a newer band, but they have a really old retro sound, which is exactly what Amy needed. And she toured with them after they were on her Back to Black record with her as well. So they just stuck with her. And then I've also got two of her actual set lists that I found online. I was really, really happy to find these. This one's from Back to Black. And then the one back up top is from her tour after Frank. And the Renettes are where she got her beehive hairstyle from. I thought that was really cool. And then I left this kind of little paragraph that's Amy talking, and kind of this is her board for inspiration, all of her likes and stuff kind of compiled into one space. And for my final one, I've got a newspaper article that would have come out the day after she died. The Sunday Times is a really popular, is one of the biggest newspapers over in the UK. Um, and I found a website where I can make it look like a actual paper. So I just took a screenshot on it so I wouldn't have to pay for it. Anyway, so I included time of death, and then I really focused on like um, showing compassion towards her, and then like how she should have been celebrated for her voice. Because a lot of people, the tabloids, like nightly hosts, made fun of Amy for her struggles when she should have been shown compassion and should have gotten help when people so clearly saw her struggling. Um, and I talk about my sources, and I talked about what I wanted to accomplish in my notes page. But besides that, that's all that I have, and I hope you enjoy my project, and I'm excited to look at y'all. So thank you.